Good evening, Guardians, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Short Pause Presents Tower Talk. I'm Ben. On the other end of the microphone there, that's Brent. We're here on behalf of Short Pause. At the Short Pause, how you follow us on Twitter, www.shortpause.com is the website. If you've never watched Tower Talk before, this is our Destiny-focused video discussion series, Brent, where you and I hop in here. We talk any and everything in the world of Destiny. We have a damn fine time doing it. And boy, oh boy, what a time to be alive, huh? Season of the Forge, active. We've had the Black Armory revealed. We have a roadmap for the annual pass for Destiny. Lots of exciting stuff going on in the world of Destiny that I cannot wait to talk about with you tonight. How are you, man? What's going on this fine evening?
Dude, I'm on the rebound. I'm bouncing back from some strep throat last week that just basically derailed my entire holiday. So that was a lot of fun. But no, man, I got some grinding in this week. You and I were working hard to finish up a couple of things before the reset and the end of this last season. And we made some good strides. We made some good work at Gambit, and we got the weapons that we wanted. And you got the final package, dude. You maxed out completely.
Yeah, it was it was as is customary when a Destiny season ends. I always seem to be there right at the end trying to get something that I wanted to get that I still hadn't completed. This season it was the Gambit, the curated trust that you get at the end of the once you reset your Gambit rank. So I hadn't yet done that yet. There's some other packages and things available when you reset your rank multiple times. So I'll have to attempt to do that this season. But yeah, grinded into the wee hours of the night. Took until 4 in the morning, Monday evening, before I finally got the last win I needed. Because unbeknownst to me, Brent, once you hit Legend in Gambit, that bar don't move. So
unless you get that win.
Yeah, unless you get a win. So if you're hitting Legend, you're like, oh man, this piece of cake. I only got a few hundred more points to get. I'll have this knocked out in no time. Well, you better hope to have a good team alongside you, or you're going to be sitting there for the next 2 hours wondering what the hell you're doing with your life. But yeah, Gambit is awesome. Had a lot of fun going through that and earning the trust, and hopefully I can grind my way through even more Gambit this season because there's a lot of cool stuff available in there. Once again, there's that special role for Bad Omens, which you get for resetting your rank twice. Really love to get my hands on that. It's a sweet rocket launcher. I really like that one, so we'd like to get the curated role on it, which has, of course, tracking and cluster bombs, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It also has if I'm not mistaken, has a special barrel perk that only that rocket launcher has. That curated one. It's not found out in the wild, so we'll have to see if I can track that down. But yeah. Had fun grinding at the end of Season of the Outlaw, and we are officially, Brent, in Season of the Forge right now. So it's currently going on. It doesn't really start in earnest until next Tuesday with the official release of Black Armory, but we're in this kind of week-long test phase, or this week-long pre-release phase where technically Season of the Forge is active right now, and there's some things going on in it. And you can get in there and play the game, and you can earn some new rewards. But it really gets started next week with Black Armory, and we'll talk about everything that entails throughout the course of the show here. But like I said, the patch is live now. So what have you been doing this week since the patch, Brent? Anything stand out to you? Obviously we don't have all of the updates available now, but we did get a patch. Came with a few interesting updates alongside of it. Anything stick out to you from the last couple of days?
One of the things that we talked about 2 weeks ago, or that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week, was the update to Gambit, where it's supposed to change the primeval for the team that's trailing. You don't get the quadruple stack or whatever to keep you caught up. You only get one. Yeah. And I was so as soon as I jumped back into the game on Tuesday, I was focused on the breakneck. I want the breakneck assault rifle. And I'm sitting there, and I'm getting kills, and so I wasn't even paying attention to what was going on with the Primeval. I was so focused on getting kills and stuff, so I didn't really see how big of a difference it was. I do know we won our matches that we played, so I was happy with that. But yeah, I'm just focused on the breakneck. I haven't really had a chance to really notice the other changes that were implemented. But right now, man, early on, nothing really stood out. Quick shout out to the guys in the chat: Jacob, JD's in there, Insanity's in there, Herman's in there. Herman, what's up, buddy?
What's up, fellas? Thanks for joining the show here. Some very interesting things actually in the update with reference to Gamma. Brent, obviously, you mentioned the new catch-up mechanics. So this ensures that the leading team has more of an advantage for like getting their Primeval out first. So the trailing team will not only receive a 1 bonus stack of the Primeval Slayer. Previously, they got up to 3 stacks. So
3 stacks, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been on the losing team many a time, and we know once we kill that Primeval, or once we kill that Envoy, that buff jumps up to ×4 real quick. So we will not have that luxury anymore as the trailing team. So we need to get on our P's and Q's there. But that's not all. They changed the infamy ranks to be more in line with Valor and Glory, which I like. Now everything's pretty similar because I was earning Gambit credit and I was like, man, I'm pretty high on Gambit, but no, Gambit goes up to 15,000. That's what it did last season. Glory goes up to 5,500. Valor goes up to 5,500. So glad that they're going to kind of even those out, so we can kind of plot a similar trajectory throughout the various ranks in the game now. All the Gambit bounties have been doubled now, Brent. So we can earn double credit that we used to get for those. They're easier. They're easier to complete. There's new ones in the rotation now as well. So some very interesting stuff with Gambit going on right now. Some other things that came out with the update, specifically things with like the Spectral Blades buff. Seen a lot of people talking about that. I've been killed by that a few times in Crucible already, so that thing seems to be firing on all cylinders. A very important damage increase to high impact scout rifles was released out into the wild. So this is specifically targeting like things going on in the Crucible, but I guess prior to this update, a high impact scout rifle.
I think we lost Boyce. We'll see if we can get him back here. I do apologize. We were having some issues earlier with Skype, so we're just waiting to see if he can kick back in. Oh, there he is. I can hear him, but his camera.
All right.
Hang on one sec. Let me fix his camera real quick.
I lost you there for a minute too, so.
Okay, you're back. You're good. You're good. We're back.
I'm back. You're back. We're all back. So, yeah. Important buff to the scout rifles. You now get you can now kill Guardians with 3 headshots with those, no matter the resilience. Also of note, there's an issue with the rate of fire with those scout rifles, and they will be returned to their proper 150 rounds per minute with the next Destiny 2 update. And a big one here, Brent. Trench barrel has been brought down a little bit. So this is, of course, the special perk for the Aikilo shotgun, a shotgun I still don't own. But it will now deactivate after 3 shots. So, so why don't I get your thoughts on this real quick? So this is an important buff for a number of reasons. First of all, it obviously is a much used weapon. It's a very, very effective weapon at melting bosses, and it's been used in a lot of strategies over the last few weeks. So to see this nerfed in some respect to bring Trench Barrel down a little bit is definitely significant. The other thing that this does, though, and the reason they did this, is that they want to spice up the weapon variety in PvE activities.
Right.
So the reality is right now, if you have an Aikilo shotgun, you use an Aikilo shotgun. There's not even a question. If you're doing a PvE activity and you're loading up your loadout, the Aikilo shotgun will always be in that energy slot. It does not matter. So now with Trench Barrel, it's still going to be a powerful perk. You're still going to fire off with 3 shots. You'll still be able to melee again and activate it again after those 3 shots. So it's still going to be a nasty gun with a nasty perk associated with it. But this might make you think a little bit more when you're creating your build outs and be like, all right, well, maybe for this activity, I might be able to look at something else other than the Aikilo shotgun. What's your thoughts on this, Brent?
At first I was bummed because that thing is pretty badass at melting bosses. And, I don't like, I understand nerfs on the PvP side of the house. I get that. But, I've always been leery of nerfs on the PvE side. But you make a good point. We've talked about before. We've seen people mention on Twitter, when you had once you got the Aikilos, that was a staple in that energy slot. You really never wanted to have anything else in that energy slot. And then, like you said, it's still going to be a very useful weapon, especially if you can, you get a couple shots off melee again, get some more shots off. But you have to figure, you have to work a melee in there now once in a while. But this will, like you said, like you mentioned, it'll entice people to try out some of the other guns. I got to use the claws of the wolf more. I really like that gun, and I feel it's really pretty useful in PvP or PvE as well.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to. It gives me more incentive to go check out some of the other guns that are really are effective. Because the Achilles was, I don't want to say it was OP because I really liked it, but it was a very reliable gun in that energy slot.
Yeah, and I think for that reason, just for the reason to at least entice people to bring a little variety to their loadouts, and I like them looking at that perk and adjusting it ever so slightly. Like I said, it's still going to be a dominant perk, but there will be some other weapons that might be worth your time for certain activities. Perhaps the most interesting thing that they did with this update, Brent, though, is they improved activity and destination load time on consoles. Now, they're still investigating issues with like the UI and the inventory screen on consoles. We know that those are a little slow to load up sometimes. But have you personally been able to test this out? Have you noticed any difference in the load times in terms of activity and destinations?
You mentioned that, and it's funny because, again, last week I was more or less just focusing on, I want to get in here and see what's new and work on my breakneck. But normally I would also be able to remember, that one time when you start up the game and there's that long load in at the black screen. I didn't encounter that because normally I'm just like, oh, what the hell? It pisses me off when it happens. I don't remember getting upset about that, so I didn't encounter that, so that's really, really nice.
Definitely. Personally, I fired it up for a little while last night, played some Crucible, but I didn't notice anything. I also wasn't paying attention, so I'll have to pay attention to that stuff next time I load into the game and see what's going on with it. So the patch is live and active right now. There's a bunch of other stuff that's in there. Go read the patch notes if you haven't, and see everything that's changed with this latest update. There will be another update on Tuesday, another hefty one with Black Armory and with everything that's going to go into the next 2.1.1 patch that's coming out as well. So there'll be a lot of good stuff to talk about when it comes to that as well. Now, Brent, last week we had the Thanksgiving holiday, so we did not do an episode of Tower Talk, but a very interesting and important update about the game came out prior to Thanksgiving, and we haven't had a chance to discuss it yet. Now, this is one of the things that you can pursue right now prior to the release of Black Armory on Tuesday, and that's these new Pinnacle Weapons. Pinnacle Weapons, not just for the Crucible, Brent, but for the Vanguard and for Gambit as well, which is really, really exciting. And these weapons look to be clearly worth your time. I mean, these weapons are going to do some damage in a number of activities. Let's start first with the Vanguard weapon. So this is the Loaded Question. Great names on these guns, by the way. The Loaded Question is a sweet name for a high impact fusion rifle. It's an arc fusion rifle, so we'll go in your energy slot. And all of these Pinnacle weapons, as has been customary with the Crucible Pinnacle weapons, have unique perks on them. So Loaded Question's unique perk is Reservoir Burst. When the battery is full, your next burst deals additional damage and causes enemies to explode on death. So this is going to be very interesting to see in action, Brent. It's going to be a matter of like how much damage does this explosion cause. With this being a Pinnacle weapon and this already being a high impact fusion rifle, I expect the damage this thing outputs to be heavy, to be extreme. So there's going to be some interesting things that are going to come into effect here with some interesting strategies with trying to keep your gun fully loaded to take advantage of that perk. Like I'm just thinking of things like the Rally Barricade, the Lunafaction boots, things that automatically reload your guns, things that are going to keep this thing firing that Reservoir Burst thing all the time. So there's going to be some cool things that you're going to be able to, some build outs some loadouts you're going to be able to put together with this gun that I think are going to be really, really effective. This quest is active right now. You pick it up from Zavala, 500 fusion rifle kills in any strike or nightfall, 1,000 art kills in any strike or nightfall, and 40 strike or nightfall completions. It's important to note this is strike or nightfall. This does not have to be nightfall only, which is interesting. I thought for sure they were going to make this nightfall only, but they went ahead and gave you the option to use strikes as well. And once you complete that, Brent, the Loaded Question is yours. There are people already getting their hands on these guns as the Destiny communities ought to do. They go out there and they just voraciously consume this stuff. There's people that have all three of these Pinnacle weapons we're going to talk about here. But what's your thoughts on the Loaded Question, man?
I think it sounds sexy, especially in a PvE environment. You know, a lot of these strikes, nightfalls, you get into an area where there's a lot of enemies, and you want to aim that one shot, the explosive shot, at the central core of a group. And again, how much damage this does, I don't know yet. I haven't seen any videos of it, but if it does heavy damage, it's going to be very effective against large mobs of enemies. So, very, very cool stuff. Jacob said the only question he has with the loaded question is, how does it have this much range? So much range in PvP, it one bursts. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this does work in PvP. And like you said, you know, how will the damage carry over to PvP? Will it be just as effective? But I mean, if anything, this might help with team shooting. You're not going to want to hang out next to a guy or a group of guys if one of them's going to get hit with this thing. It's going to kill everybody, especially if the explosion is big.
Yeah. Well, the thing with PvP is you won't be able to activate the loaded question perk because your gun's never going to be full. You spawn in with that special ammo in PvP with 2 rounds. So unless you're running around collecting bricks and you build up that loaded question, you know, that the reservoir burst buff. Mm-hmm. Unless you go around and pick up the bricks and hoard that, you could do that definitely. If you're adept with killing with your primary, you could definitely make that happen, and then it could be an issue. But when you spawn in, this thing's not going to be active until you fill up that magazine.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so there's going to be some interesting strategies with that in PvP. It is a high impact fusion, so it's going to do some damage in PvP regardless. Right. I haven't heard anything, Jacob, about the range in that thing, so I'll have to look into that. But it's a Pinnacle weapon, so I expect this thing to be nasty in a number of different activities. So it's good to hear that it sounds like that's going to be the case. Mm-hmm. Moving on from the loaded question, Brent, we have the breakneck, which is the Gambit auto rifle, something that you've alluded to earlier in the show here. This is a kinetic auto rifle, and it has maybe the coolest perk in the game, an Onslaught, a new perk designed specifically for this gun. The weapon's rate of fire increases as you stack Rampage. So Rampage is already a tier 1 perk to have on your weapon, whether you're in PvE or PvP. This is a highly desirable perk. And when you can stack this thing to 3 times, you do some heavy damage with your weapon. The fact that your rate of fire is going to increase with Rampage stacks is awesome, and you are seriously going to mow down groups of enemies. In the short video that accompanied this, we saw a Titan drop a rally barricade and watch their breakneck constantly reload as they're just mowing through groups of enemies in a strike. And you know that Onslaught perk was just constantly in motion, and that thing was just an absolute beast. This thing is going to do work in Gambit. I mean, this is going to be a must-have gun in Gambit, because if you don't have it, you are going to lose to the other team. That's what's going to happen with this. The people that play Gambit a lot, they're going to have this weapon early in the season, and they are going to destroy you if you do not have this gun, because they are going to burn through these groups of enemies when they load in here. So, Brent, I know you're very, very excited about the possibilities of the breakneck, and make no mistake, while it's going to be dominant in Gambit, this is going to be a useful weapon in every activity in Destiny, Crucible included. What's your thoughts on breakneck, man?
First of all, you know me, man. I'm an AR guy. I love assault rifles. I like the versatility, and this one is really, really good. And I actually watched a video earlier where a guy broke down, you know, the first Rampage, it's at 450 rounds. Second Rampage is 600 rounds per minute. And then the final and third and final Rampage gets you up to 720. So, I mean, this thing is really firing quick by the time you hit the third Rampage. And it's going to be an effective gun. I'm sure it'll be more effective in PvE, but in PvP, if you can get a group of enemies together and you can start pulling off some critical shots, and you drop one guy, and then you get that high rate of fire, and you get to the third, you're going to do some damage against a group of enemies if you get the jump on them. So I'm really excited. I love the look of the breakneck. I think it has a rad look to it. I actually picked up that silver box from Tess, so I could get the Whisper of the Worm ornament, because it has kind of a similar wrapper on it. So when I have that and the breakneck, it'll look nice, man. It'll look like they're brother and sister.
There you go, a nice little family of deadly weapons.
Hell yeah.
in your armory. So to earn the breakneck, Brent, pretty simple. Grab the quest from the Drifter, get 500 auto rifle kills, 100 auto rifle multi kills, 150 challenging enemies defeated, and 40 gambit matches completed. And all of these can be done at the same time. Like I said, people already own this gun. They did it in one day. This and the loaded question are very achievable quests, and I think it won't be too long with a little bit of sustained focus before we have both of these weapons, and I can't wait to get my hands on both of them. Now, let's talk the most controversial weapon in this trio here, and that's the Crucible Pinnacle Weapon, which is the Mountaintop. Another great name for a gun. The Mountaintop lightweight grenade launcher, which will house itself in your kinetic slot, which is significant because right now I believe the only kinetic grenade launcher is that Malicious Birthright, which is the reward for the Lake of Shadow Strike, and that's a very, very useful grenade launcher, a very powerful grenade launcher. It's now going to have some competition in the Mountaintop, and here's what makes the Mountaintop special. It's its perk, Micro Missile. This weapon fires in a straight line and has a massively increased projectile speed. In addition to the above benefits, the projectile instantly detonates on the environment instead of bouncing like a traditional grenade launcher unless you have sticky grenades selected. So this is essentially a rocket launcher that you will be carrying around in your kinetic slot. So I'm really excited about this gun. It looks really cool. The video they showed, Brent, had a hunter wearing the 6th Coyote. So it doubling the dodge for the hunter and being able to reload the Mountaintop multiple times with multiple dodges, and we just saw this guy just nuke 3 guys right in front of him, and it was awesome. It looked really cool. So some very, very interesting things with this gun in that it detonates when it hits the surface, which once again makes it like a rocket launcher. So no more of that bouncing around. And there's been a lot of talk about this gun in the Destiny community, and much of this prior to the gun even coming out. So this is before the sandbox was even established, before anybody had their hands on this gun, before any match of Crucible Season 5 was played. There were some in the Destiny community that had stuck their flag in the ground, was like, this is BS. We don't want this thing. We don't want grenade launchers wreaking havoc around the competitive playlist. So there's a lot of talk about this gun. I feel like it's died down a little bit since some people, like I said, already have this gun. So with sustained focus in the Crucible, you can earn this gun relatively quickly if you have a good squad associated with you. But Brent, let me get your thoughts on the Mountaintop, man.
In the video we saw, it looked hella fun. But I am concerned if we go into a Crucible match, you and I playing with a bunch of randos, and we go up against a squad that has a clan that all has this gun. I could see that being an issue. But I haven't ran into it personally. I do want to get my hands on it. I do want to try it. It sounds like a fun gun. It sounds like a fun weapon to use. But this one I'm going to keep a close eye on just to see how quickly it becomes the meta.
Yeah. So, like I said, people were making a big deal out of this, and I think it was blown out of proportion by some prior to the release season 5, as everything on the internet is, right? Mm-hmm. So not shocking that was the case, and I'm even more excited about the gun now that some people are getting their hands on it, because I've seen people talking about it. They're like, yeah, this is a fun gun. It's fun to use. It is definitely effective, and it earns its place as a pinnacle Crucible weapon. Mm-hmm. But it has its weaknesses. This is not a grenade launcher with proximity grenades on it. That doesn't launch as a perk with this gun. So you have to get direct hits with your shots. Like you cannot miss with this thing. You gotta hit direct hits or implode on the environment around your enemy. And this is still a Crucible that's dominated by shotguns and people that effectively use those. So it still has its weaknesses. It's still a grenade launcher. It still has to compete with the meta that's going on in the Crucible right now. It remains to be seen if people can put together builds that change this, or if the Crucible ends up being broken, which I don't think it will because of this. But this is not the end of competitive life as we know it, because the Mountaintop is available in the Crucible. So I think that's been a little bit exaggerated. And yeah, I would love to get my hands on this gun. I've been talking about trying to get a team together to play competitive for a while. Hopefully we can make that happen, because not only this, but Luna's Howl is out there that we still haven't achieved. I got some work to do still on my Redrix's broadsword quest, so I gotta make that happen. So there's some nasty guns out there that we gotta get our hands on, dude. We just gotta get out there and start doing some work.
Yes, sir.
So that was what was going on prior to Thanksgiving. So they gave us a little sneak peek of what was going on with Season of the Forge. This stuff, like I said, active right now. These weapons are obtainable in the game. So get on there, start grinding through Season of the Forge, and get ready for this upcoming Tuesday, because that's when Black Armory goes live. And the big event, Brent, even bigger than the release of the new patch and the release of the new season, was the fact that Bungie released the new Vidoc for Destiny Forsaken this past Tuesday, which gave us not only a preview of what's coming in the near future, specifically with Black Armory, but gave us a preview of the road ahead for Destiny 2 throughout year 2 and what we can expect from the annual pass. So there's a lot of stuff to dissect and kind of move through here, but let's get into this, man. So essentially, Brent, Bungie is fundamentally changing the way that they update Destiny 2 or the way that they deliver content to us. So we heard this. I think we have a better understanding of it now that we've seen exactly what we can expect from some of these expansions. So obviously in the past with things like Curse of Osiris, Warmind, even going back to the Taken King and Rise of Iron and the Dark Below and everything that we've seen in terms of the history of Destiny updates over the last 4 or 5 years, it's always been a DLC package that included some type of a campaign, as well as, it oftentimes included new activities, obviously new gear and things to get your hands on. That was all par for the course. But what Bungie is doing now is they're doubling down on what they believe the fans want to see from Destiny, and that's the end game, and that's the things that keep you coming back week after week. And I love the quote in the Vidoc, where I forget who it is, but one of the guys says, what we did with Forsaken and what we're doing moving forward with the annual pass is, instead of being, he says, this game as it stands now is an end game with a campaign, not a campaign with an end game.
Right.
So they are doubling down on what they believe the fans love about this game, and I believe they're correct. The Destiny community loves the end game. They love grinding for the god rolls. They love doing these high level activities and powering up their guardian, getting these pinnacle weapons, getting their hands on these badass exotics that just make them feel ultra powerful, getting their hands on these super moves. Like that's what this game's all about. It's about the end game. So I do agree that this is probably what the community wants them to focus on moving forward. And like I said, we now have a better idea of what's coming with this annual pass. So, Brent, we have a calendar to take a look at here. It breaks down the entire season for us, and obviously December through February is going to be Season of the Forge. Starting in March, we'll have Season of the Drifter, which is the next batch of content, and then in June through August is the very interesting Penumbra update, which will be Season of the Redacted, the most mysterious of these updates. But we have a bunch of content that's going to be available for all players of Destiny 2 Forsaken, things like Iron Banner and the seasonal events, new power levels, that kind of stuff. Like that's going to be available to all people who own Forsaken, and a lot of this stuff's going to be available to everybody who just owns Destiny 2 in general. So we've got some interesting stuff there, and we'll break down each of these individually. And then we have an annual, a breakdown of what we can expect from the annual pass content. And there's some interesting stuff in here in terms of what you're going to be able to get your hands on as a member of the annual pass. So let's get into this first, Brent, with Black Armory. So, So we know a little bit more about what to expect with this thing now. So we're getting a piece of content that, like I said, does not have a campaign, does not have a story to go through, but that doesn't mean that Black Armory doesn't have a story to tell. So we have this secret faction that nobody's met up to this point, this secret Golden Age faction who creates, some of the coolest weapons in the Destiny universe. They've been keeping it under wraps, trying to maintain their secrets and their blueprints, throughout the collapse. And somehow, some way, we're going to get in contact with the Black Armory via 801. Who's an exo gunsmith, And it looks like the majority of the story that this particular expansion has to tell is going to be through the lore, going to be through the triumphs, going to be through some of the activities that we partake in and the quests that we do, right. The guns that we get our hands on. Like that's where the story for this game is going to be. So, a very, very interesting take on it. And this is kind of what we expected, obviously, when they announced that there wasn't going to be just a traditional campaign with these games. So as a part of Black Armory, we're going to get, of course, new weapons and gear, a new exotic quest, which we'll touch on all this stuff momentarily here, new triumphs, new lore books, and the Black Armory Forges, which is the new like end game activity that they're adding with the game here, in addition to a brand new raid. Outside of that, the seasonal content, we're going to see the Dawning return, which is a Destiny event that's been happening for the last few years. We're going to see, of course, that increase to 650 power. So every new season that comes out, power level will increase by 50. That's important to note. Of course, have new Eververse rewards, new triumphs, new lore books, new ranks. Iron Banner will, of course, return, and Crimson Days, another popular Destiny event, will return in February around Valentine's Day. So Brent, like I said, there's a lot to chew on here, but let's kind of start with with this calendar here, with what we see with Season of the Forge, what we see coming on the line here. Like, what's your take on all this? Specifically, I want to get your thoughts on the annual pass content, and does this seem like a suitable replacement for what a typical Destiny content drop would look like in the past, with new strikes and new campaigns and all the stuff that goes into that? What's your thoughts on what we're seeing here?
I like this idea because it gets rid of the embarrassing attempts at a narrative, and it focuses more on what we want, and that's content, that's events, that's activities, it's weapons, it's mystery, it's quests, it's all the stuff that we want to do. We want the end game content. That's the stuff that keeps Destiny 2 players going, is the end game stuff. And so, while they're not going to focus too much on the storytelling through these 3 seasons, the Forge, the Drifter, and the Penumbra, but they're doubling down on content. They're doubling down on things to do, and that's all I really want. I mean, look, we all know at this point, Destiny 2, Destiny in general, is not a narrative-driven experience. It isn't. They attempted to do it, and that's one thing I want to point out. This doesn't mean we're done seeing narrative-driven stuff. This content, this calendar is from December until August. Mm-hmm. So that leaves it wide open for another big campaign in September, another big DLC similar to Forsaken.
Which there will be.
Yep.
Which there will be.
And I think that's good. That gives them time to focus on building a strong narrative for the typical September update. But everything here is doubling down on content. Lots of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff I want to talk about on this calendar, especially in the Penumbra, June, August, when there's a lot of cool stuff there that I'm interested in. But at first glance, I mean, we look at the events that we've had recently. I'm curious to see how they've improved the Dawning. I'm curious to see how they've improved Crimson Days. These could be very, very cool events based on the events that we've had recently. So I'm really these could be much more meaningful, and that's just going to make things a lot more interesting for players.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Brent, because I was thinking the exact same thing, starting with the Solstice of Heroes back at the conclusion of Destiny 2 and in through Forsaken and into the Festival of the Lost, which was an awesome event. We had a brand new activity in the Haunted Forest that we had a lot of fun with. We had a brand new Pinnacle weapon to obtain from that event in the Horror Story, which is a gun I still use every time I log into Destiny. It's a very, very useful gun, and it completely changed the way I upgrade my character. So having that 600 power weapon really catapulted me towards getting my Guardian to 600, and I just started leveling up at a much higher clip than I would have without that gun. So that was a huge event. It was a lot of fun. There was some good cosmetic rewards too, like the cat ghost, that kind of stuff was there's some cool stuff in there to obtain from that as well. So some good Eververse rewards, and like you said, I'm curious to see now what they do with the Dawning, an event we've seen in the past, an event which has seen varying levels of success. But do we see a Festival of the Lost style turnaround with the Dawning now? Like, does this become a destination activity where we get cool rewards and Pinnacle Weapons and things to get our hands on? Like, that's going to be exciting to see. Crimson Days has always been about like the Crucible and getting those doubles matches going. So I'll be curious to see what they do with that. I'm not sure, how much they're planning to expand that one. But yeah, very curious to see what's going on with these events, dude.
Yeah, and I think expectations should be high. I think they've done a good job of setting the precedent of what to expect from these seasonal events. Like you said, the Festival of the Lost was a huge step in the right direction, huge step. Obviously, Solstice of Heroes was incredible, but this the Festival of the Lost is more in line with the Dawning and Crimson Days and whatever the spring event's going to be. They have set a very good precedent, and I think expectations should be high. I mean, I'm not expecting a whole lot, but what should be there, like you said, a Pinnacle weapon that's tied to the Dawning, a Pinnacle weapon that's tied to Crimson Days. I think that's a good precedent to set, and that's going to make each of these events something you don't want to miss.
Yeah. The Dawning's all about, like, winter celebration and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like an Icebreaker would be a nice tie-in to an event like that. And I believe it was in the Dawning during Rise of Iron when we actually got Icebreaker back in the first Destiny. So there would be some synergy there. Maybe we'll see Icebreaker return at some point, which of course is one of the coolest sniper rifles ever. But Brent, what do you think about this delineation between the free content, the free seasonal updates, and the annual pass? So just to hammer this home, so the Dawning, Crimson Days, the seasonal events, new triumphs and lore books, new vanity rewards, new rank rewards, Iron Banner, all available to everybody who owns Destiny 2. You don't need any expansions to those.
Right.
If you own Forsaken, you get access to the power increase. Even if you don't own the annual pass, you will be able to get your Guardian up to 650. And then we have the things in the annual pass: Black Armory weapons and gear, exotic quest, new triumphs and lore books specifically for annual pass owners, new raid, and the new endgame activity in the Black Armory forges. What do you think about the dividing of the content here? Does this seem like this would be enough to make both sides of the coin happier?
I think it does because of what happened with Festival of the Lost. The Dawning could be a legitimate event. That's something where, hey, if I don't have the annual pass, at least I have something to look forward to. Same with Crimson Days. And then you got Iron Banner and new lore and new rank rewards and new vanity rewards. That's all stuff to work towards. So those people have plenty of things to do to keep them invested and interested and powering along. But the annual pass content, that is like a layer of DLC. And like they mentioned in that video, we want to give you another layer of content. And yeah, you're getting Black Armory weapons and gear, an exotic quest. I mean, this is stuff I would expect to get, by paying a little extra.
So let's dig into that annual pass content a little bit now with Black Armory. Like I said, with Tuesday's update, Black Armory will be live. Season of the Forge will be kicked off in earnest, and we're gonna have access to some sweet new weapons and gear. Because really, that's what Black Armory is all about, right? That's what the Black Armory is. They're these golden age, gunsmiths who put together these kick-ass weapons, and it looks like we're gonna get some kick-ass weapons. So they've unveiled basically 5 of the new exotics that we're going to have access to with Black Armory, and these things look absolutely bonkers, Brent. We've got the Anarchy grenade launcher. This is a thing which basically shoots arc mines into the ground, and eventually when you get them down on the ground, they link up. They like arc together to form like an arc fence around your enemies. So I have no idea what the play style is going to be like with this gun. It just sounds really cool. It's got maximum velocity, I believe, on it as well. So it sounds like it's going to be a really cool, really unique weapon to use, and I'm curious to see its application. We have Le Monarch, which is the bow, which looks sweet. It's they compared it to Thorn in the Vidoc. So this is a weapon that could potentially do massive amounts of what do they call that? Lingering damage.
Yeah, actually, I had the description right here for pestilence
damage
arrows.
Over time. That's what they call it. Yeah.
It says on a perfect draw, a hit target receives damage over time. On a perfect draw with a precision hit, all enemies in the Void Cloud receive damage over time.
Yeah. So there's two interesting applications there. The one with the void cloud, that's something that could be useful in PvE activities. It could also be useful, obviously, in the Crucible if you're playing control. You hit a group that's standing on a control point. That could be a useful perk there. But I like that first part there about it has to be a perfectly drawn and it basically has to be a perfectly shot arrow in order for that perk to activate. So there is a little bit of skill and a little bit of ability that's going to be tied to using this weapon. So it won't just be just as simple as just jumping into the Crucible and damage over timing people to death until they die. So yeah, very very curious to see that one. Yotan, dude, which is basically a Mega Buster. It's like Mega Man's arm cannon. You get a fusion rifle that slots onto your arm, and this thing just shoots like these explosive fireballs of death that I believe they mentioned in the Vidoc that this has some like tracking capabilities on it as well. So this fire will seek you out, and it actually ignites the ground around the enemy as well for some area of effect damage. That thing sounds incredibly useful. I definitely want to get my hands on that, not only because his name is Yotan, but because it's like Mega Man's arm cannon. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But the crowning achievement of this group of 4 new weapons might be Ignigis Burden, which is just a sick looking sniper rifle that I've seen. I believe Games Radar called it a rail gun, and the unique perk that this thing has is it's got 4 rounds in the magazine. But if you so choose, you can do the special reload on Ignigis Burden, condense all 4 bullets into 1 bullet, and just shoot a massive bullet that just does ridiculous amounts of damage to enemies both in and outside of PvP. So to the point where I believe you can body shot guardians in one shot with Ignigis Burden. So a very very dangerous sounding weapon. Now, how hard is it going to be in the Crucible to get those 4 shots, to get those 4 rounds in the chamber? That remains to be seen. But this is going to be an incredibly useful perk in PvE. Brent, they compared the damage that this thing does to the Whisper of the Worm, to the Sleeper Simulant. They put it into that class of weapon. So this thing has the potential to be a monster and something that people are going to want to get their hands on. So I'm excited about these weapons. What do you think about them? Which one stands out to you?
Definitely Ignigis.
Yeah.
That sounds totally badass. Like you said, it's got that honed edge intrinsic perk where you hold down, reload and then it'll slam all the bullets into 1 shot, and then you can one-hit people. That's pretty badass. I am interested in Anarchy though, especially in a PvE setting.
Yeah.
You drop down these mines and you kind of see like this electrical force field, just zapping every enemy within the mine area. So that looks totally badass.
Yeah, it could definitely be some interesting like ad situations where you're just mobbing just swarms of enemies inside of this electrical field and just burning right through them. So that thing could be very dangerous. Now the 5th weapon, Brent, is a returning weapon. It's an exotic weapon. It's a weapon that we believe is a weapon that people have been clamoring for a long time to return to Destiny 2. And that weapon is, of course, none other than the Last Word. So this is a gun we all thought had the potential to come back with Forsaken, with its Western theme. And now with Black Armory, it seems that this is going to become a reality. One of the things on this, so with the Black Armory update, on January 29th, we are getting access to a new exotic quest called The Draw. And they gave us a little hint about this, Brent. And just by the name of it, it's like, all right, this has to be the last word. The draw, the Western theme. We see the Guardian kind of doing the Western walk towards this kind of burned out, outline of a body on this rock or something when they're showing this in the Vidoc, and people immediately proceeded to lose their stuff. They're like, oh my gosh, the last word's returning. Ah! So,
and I mean, it's right there in the video. I mean, if you look at here, you see the last word, and just in front of the trigger, you see that little white dot right beneath the chamber of where the bullets are held. And then when you go to that video and you see the Guardian walking, you can see just to the right of his leg, you see the barrel of the gun, and there's that white dot. And I went back and looked, and I didn't find any other hand cannons with that white dot there. So that is clearly the last word at the hip of the Guardian.
Yeah. I mean, what else could an exotic quest called The Draw be about other than the last word? which is the ultimate like cowboy hand cannon that's ever been introduced to Destiny. It's got to be the last word. Like you said, that white dot, a clear giveaway. So this thing, as of January 29th, Brent, will be returning to Destiny 2 Forsaken with a brand new exotic quest for Black Armory owners. The question is now, like, what will this exotic quest entail? How difficult will it be to get this weapon? Will this be tied to the raid? Will this be tied to the Forge activities? What exactly is going to go into obtaining this weapon? I'll be very, very curious to see. And we actually have a roadmap for the entirety of Black Armory. So starting on December 4th, on that Tuesday, our first Forge will go live in Volunder's Forge. So let's talk a little bit about these Forges, Brent. So this is the new Pinnacle endgame activity that is being introduced with Black Armory. This is a wave-based horde mode type of activity, something akin to the Blind Well, to Escalation Protocol, to Prison of the Others, to things that we've seen in the past. This will be a match-made activity. So for the first time in a long time with one of these horde mode type situations, you're going to actually be able to matchmake with other people. So there won't be any Escalation Protocol situations where you're trying to find people or you're trying to do some crazy workarounds to get your group into the same play space. There won't be anything with the Blinding Well where you're sitting around trying to wonder if anybody's going to show up to help you with this thing. You will be able to matchmake with these forges. And we don't know a whole lot about them right now. We've got some descriptions about them. From what it seems like, Brent, there's going to be some objective-based activities in here where you're going to have to obtain these parts throughout the activity and place them into the forge. You will actually be forging the weapons as you're going through these forges. So those 4 guns we just talked about in Anarchy, Le Monarch, Yotan, and Ignigis Burden, those are going to be obtained from these forges by going through these activities and forging these weapons. So the whole thing behind Black Armory is after we meet Ada-1, she's going to send us out in search of these forges and reclaiming these, and then we'll have access to these new weapons via this forge. So Brent, I don't know, what can you suss out about the forge activity? Anything that I'm missing with this? And what's your thoughts on this new activity, man?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure you're being able to get the exotics from this. I mean, they might be drops, but based on what I saw in the video doc, is that there are actual like forged weapons that are different than the exotics. I think there's other Black Armory weapons as well. So I mean that doesn't mean that you can't get. I mean I'm sure they'll be tied to this somehow. But I do like the idea of this mode. First of all, like I said, matchmaking is a win. That's really, really cool. Because you want to get into these events. This is an event that you want to play with other people, and you want to make sure you have enough people there. It's a 3-person event, and basically what it is, you have the parts, and every time you put a part into the forge and it starts doing whatever it does, a horde of enemies will attack. And then once they're done, you try to put another piece in it. It's just it's supposed to be a very challenging event. But they did mention that, at first it's going to be difficult, but as you rank your power up, it will become a little bit easier. I don't think it's going to be as difficult as what we've seen from like Escalation Protocol or anything like that, but it will be a challenging event early on.
It sounds like this is going to be a bit of a quicker event too than Escalation Protocol. So Escalation Protocol was a 7-wave like triathlon event where you had to really get in there and give it your all, and it was a grind to get through those 7 waves. Forge, the couple of clips they showed in the video that someone was fighting a Forge Warden on the 3rd wave of the event. I don't know if there's anything to read into that, if there's going to be 3 waves or if that's just a particular mid boss that was in that activity. We don't really know yet until we get in there and experience the event. But from what it sounds like Bungie was talking about, it sounds like they were trying to get an event that wasn't going to take you 60 minutes to go through. It was something that you could sit down, you could do a round or two of Forge and feel like you accomplished something. You didn't have to sit there for hours on end in order to partake in this event. What do you think about that, Brent? Does it seem like this is going to be meaty enough to kind of be the anchor end game, piece in this piece of content?
I mean, this is just one piece of it. I mean, and there's 4 different forges, so I mean that's a plus as well. There's 4 different forges that you're going to be able to do this in. Yes. And because it's a shorter event, that also makes me question whether or not there's gonna be too many exotics tied to this, because the exotics you want to have like exotic quests, long grinds to get them, and if it's just this is more of a shorter, condensed instance or a event to carry out, I do think this will probably be something tied to more legendary type weapons that are exclusive to the actual Forge or the Season of the Forge, or I'm sorry, the Black Armory DLC. But no, I mean, in terms of this, though, 4 different forges, they're going to pop up over the course of like a month and a half or a month. I think this sounds pretty good. I mean, this is just the first step. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we need to keep doing. But I think between, for a 2-month, 3-month period, 4 forges and a new raid, I think that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, dude. And these are going to be exciting events. Like you said, whether it's legendary guns or exotics. I was thinking the exotics. I don't know if I read it somewhere, but there's also 4 of these forges. There's 4 of these new exotic weapons that we're gonna have access to as well. So, but December 4th, the Volunder Forge goes live. December 7th, the Gofanon Forge goes live. December 18th is the Izanami Forge, and January 8th is Niobe Labs, which is the 4th and final forge. And once all 4 forges are in the wild, Brent, these will be on a rotation. So there'll be a different one in the fold every week, kind of like with the bosses in Escalation Protocol, kind of like what we've seen in the past with Prison of the Elders. With some of these events, there'll be different things in the rotation every single week in terms of what you'll have access to. So that's gonna keep things spicy with the forge as well as those things kind of rotate through there. So yeah, I'm curious to see what loot is tied to these. And like you said, like, what do those exotic quests look like? Is it simply completing the activity? Is there going to be more we have to do? Obviously, it's probably going to be more that we have to do to get some of this stuff. But yeah, super curious to see that. And perhaps the most interesting piece of content with Black Armory, though, Brent, is this new raid, which goes live on December 7th. And yeah. Man. And the interesting thing about this, Brent, is this is not listed as a raid lair, and people immediately picked up on this when Bungie put out this Vidoc and they were talking about a new raid being a part of this. And we have a quote from Deej to kind of straighten things out here a little bit. This new raid, by the way, Scourge of the Past is what it's known as, which is a sweet name for a raid, and it will take place in the last city of all places, which is very interesting. Deej had this to say regarding the raid, Brent. This next raid is something that takes place in a brand new setting. It's a place you've never been able to explore and fight, and we're sending you in head first to confront the biggest challenges and earn the best rewards that we have in the game. Raids come in different shapes and sizes. What you'll be playing will be much larger than a raid lair, but not as large in scope and size as Last Wish, which was the biggest raid we've ever created. It's an activity that we feel is deserving of the word raid, especially because it happens in a completely new location. So this got people excited, man. So look, the raid layers were incredibly fun in Destiny 2. Spire of Stars and Eater of Worlds I thought were awesome pieces of content that were challenging, that were really fun to play through. But to have the next quote unquote raid layer be upgraded to a full on raid in whatever form it takes, and to take place in the last city in a brand new piece of content is pretty exciting to me, man. And immediately when they were talking about this, I thought in my head Crota's End. Like that is a raid that is not as meaty as some of the other raids that we've had over the years. It's probably the shortest raid out of all of them when it's said and done, outside of the actual raid layers themselves, in terms of the encounters, in terms of what actually goes into that raid. So we could be getting something like Crota's End right here. The one they compared it to in the Vidoc was Wrath of the Machine. They talked about bringing Wrath of the Machine style combat, high octane, high action content to this raid. So that's exciting. We see Sparrow racing in here at some point. We're gonna be on our Sparrows, jetting through the last city for something. Obviously it's a raid, so we don't know anything about it other than it's in the last city. You ride Sparrows, and it's called the Scourge of the Past. But Brent, which thoughts on what we're seeing from this raid, dude?
Based on what we know, what we've seen, this looks pretty sweet. We're exploring kind of a new area that we've never ever been able to really go through. So this is gonna be something new for everybody. Now, how deep this thing runs, or how hard it really is, or how elaborate it really is, remains to be seen. I think that's gonna be something that people are gonna kind of put under the microscope when this comes out. Is this really a raid, or does it feel more like a raid lair? To be honest with you, when I sit there and I played the Leviathan and then both the raid lairs, I thought they were all pretty sizable. Obviously, the Leviathan raid was a much bigger raid, but the raid layers were no slouch. I mean, they were very challenging, and they took a little while to complete. So, but I mean, I think this will be under a microscope. I think the community will look at this and be like, is this really a raid? And that's just going to depend on what you're doing and who you're fighting and what the encounters are like. Is it mechanic heavy? Is it more focused on combat? A lot of this stuff is going to, the community is going to look at this and try to figure out and determine, is this really a raid, or is this feel more like a raid lair? And that'll be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the mechanics in those raid layers were intense.
Yeah, they were.
Intense. There were some elaborate things that you had to do to conquer those things, and they took a lot of teamwork, a lot of collaboration, a lot of just missteps along the way to try and conquer those things. They were incredibly fun, though, pieces of content, and obviously, as is the case with pretty much every raid that's ever come out of Destiny, these things are the highlight of this game, and I expect Scourge of the Past to be no less. Here's straight from the horse's mouth at Bungie, Brent, in this week's update. When we revealed the annual pass earlier this year, we mentioned the inclusion of new raid layers. In Season of the Forge's reveal earlier this week, we said it contains a raid, not a raid layer, a concept we had introduced last year. Layers were extensions of an existing raid setting. Black Armory's Scourge of the Past doesn't fit that definition. It takes place in a new setting, tells its own story, and isn't related to the events of the Dreaming City. Destiny raids have come in many shapes and sizes, from Crota's End to Last Wish, and Scourge of the Past falls within that spectrum. So right there, Brent, from the horse's mouth, where you have Crota's End at one end of the spectrum, which is a smaller, faster, more action-packed raid, to the Last Wish, which is the biggest raid they've ever completed. Scourge of the Past is in that spectrum. So it's at least as long or as beefy as Crota's End. So that's pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
So, very excited to see Scourge. A little unfortunate that it comes out December 7th, a couple days after the update goes live. So, of course, you won't be able to participate in the initial festivities. But interesting about this raid, Brent. So it goes live Friday, December 7th at 9 a.m. I believe that's Pacific time. Its recommended power is 640, so 640 of the 650 cap. But there's no minimum power requirement.
Right.
So anybody can hop into this thing once it goes live on, obviously as long as you own Black Armory. But once it goes live on December 7th, you can hop in there even if you're 600, 610, if you want to get your ass handed to you, go in there and you can give it a whirl, and see what happens. So super interested to see what becomes of that, man. Then of course we have the Dawning starting on December 11th. That's free to all players, and on February 5th, Crimson Days will go live, and then we'll have some Iron Banners in here. We'll have I'm sure some other things going on that will take us into March with the season of the Drifter. So all in all, Brent, from everything that we're seeing from Black Armory, are you happy with this content that we're getting once December 4th rolls around on Tuesday?
I can't say if I'm happy, but I am excited. I am excited to jump into it and see what all's in there and what kind of weapons. And I want to jump into like some of these new these perks or these new mods that are going to be available to some of these weapons. So there's a lot of stuff there in terms of fans who love weapons and love tweaking things and getting down to a granular level. So, I mean, that's really, really exciting. Like I said, I'm really excited with a lot of what we've seen here. Whether or not we're happy with it, we're not going to know right away.
Yeah. Do you think this is the right direction for Destiny to go? Is focusing on the end game, is focusing on not giving us more campaign missions and things to do in that respect, is giving us more weapons to obtain, more gear to chase after, more Pinnacle weapons, more exotics, more end game activities. Is that the right direction to go with this, you think?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the same thing. Yeah, I think this is the right way to go, because if you look at it, dude, in the past, the most exciting, the most revered expansions have either been The Taken King or Forsaken. Those are the big September updates. Everything in between has always been met with some form of criticism because they spent too much time on narrative and they could have spent more time on content and activities and things to do. Now they're doing that. Now they're saying, okay, well, look, forget the narrative. There will be some story, but it'll be mixed into the lore or during the mission itself. You're going to get all that stuff, but this is more end-game content, more content, activities, and stuff to do. They'll focus on the big narrative bumps to drive the Destiny narrative forward in September. Taken King, Forsaken, next September. Everything else in between, just make it content. I like what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I like this path. Another interesting thing they said in the Vidoc, Brent, is there's plenty of secrets in with Black Armory and Season of the Forge. Obviously, they're not going to talk about those secrets. So how those get revealed, what those entail, what exactly they're hiding in this remains to be seen. But that stuff is always some of the most exciting stuff about this game. So very, very curious to see, what they come up with. Like, is there another Whisper type mission? Is this some evolving thing like the Dreaming City? Like, what do these secrets look like in Season of the Forge? So super curious to see what that's all about. Let's hop back over to the calendar for a minute, Brent, and let's take a look at the little peeks they gave us beyond the Season of the Forge. So we know a lot about Black Armory at this point, or as much as we can know before we get our hands on the content on Tuesday. They also gave us little teases for what's coming on the line. First was Season of the Drifter. This is the Joker's Wild update, which is scheduled for March through May. This is the third season of Forsaken. So free to all, Gambit private matches and new maps. So that's awesome. So we're going to see some more variety coming to Gambit. Obviously, Gambit going to be a huge focus of this update with it being about the Drifter. Power increase, new vanity rewards, rank rewards, triumphs, and lore books. A new exotic quest available to everybody is coming with Season of the Drifter. A new spring event, which we don't know. They aren't spilling the beans on what the name of it is yet. And, of course, Iron Banner will return for everybody. On the annual pass content side of things, there's some super interesting stuff here, Brent. So Joker's Wild Weapons and Gear. Obviously, we'll have new weapons and gear. A new Pinnacle Gambit experience, I believe they called it, or a new endgame Gambit experience. Something, I don't remember the exact wording they used for it, but what is that going to look like? Like, what is it? What new Gambit experience are they going to bring out that's going to tie in more to the end game? Any thoughts on that?
I couldn't even begin to guess.
Like what? But in the back of your mind, like if you had to delve deep into the recesses of your mind and pull out like what a next level Gambit experience would look like, what would that entail?
Man, dude.
Would we see like maybe some mini raid style mechanics in these where you have objectives to take care of in the middle of a match? Like would they add something like that in there?
Man, that would be pretty sweet. They'll add some mechanics to it. Not just go out and like a horde fest. Like add some mechanics to it, dude. That'd be pretty sweet, man.
Yeah. Like could they drop like a mid boss in the middle of the match where you have to figure out how to defeat him and there's different mechanics associated with it or something like that? Who knows? Who knows what that's going to be? But super curious to see what that's all about. There will be a new exotic quest for annual pass holders as well. So you got a free one for everybody. There's also one for annual pass members as well. New triumphs and lore books exclusive to the annual pass. The Joker's Wild weekly quest. Curious to see what those are going to be about. And perhaps the most interesting thing on this list, though, Brent, is Xur bounties.
Yeah.
What are Xur bounties going to look like, dude?
I mean, if you look at Xur, he sells exotics.
Right?
So there's got to
about exotics, right?
There's got to be something with these bounties tied to exotics. I mean, there has to be. That's who he is. He shows up, he sells the exotics, and so maybe you sit there and you look at the exotics. Well, I already have these. I don't want these. Hey, here's a couple of bounties you can do that maybe it'll get you a different exotic. I mean, that's something they could do to kind of spice things up a little bit. Because I mean, if you go to see Xur and he has a bunch of stuff you already have, it's pretty much like okay, bye later. Yeah. Or maybe he could have. Yeah, I mean that's all I can think of, man. At this time, it's something tied to like maybe a fourth or a fifth exotic that isn't in his list that'll give you another drop. I don't know.
Something I'd like to see is the ability to re-roll our exotic armor. So exotic armor, of course, has random perks on it. So exotic armor is incredibly hard to come by if Xur's not selling it. I've only got one piece of exotic armor for Forsaken so far, and I've got it to drop 2 times for me. So it's the same piece of armor, but this stuff's hard to come by, man. So when you get your hands on a piece, and there's a lot of exotic armor I have right now that I really like the crown of I can't even think of the name of it right now, but the crown I wear, crown of thorns, it doesn't even sound right. No,
it sucks anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Why can I not think of the name of the crown that I'm wearing? But anyways, there's exotic armor I have right now that I like the Ophidian aspects. Like those are things that I want to keep around and that I don't get to drop every day for me. And the fact that I've already obtained those, but they don't have the perks on them that I want, it gets very tough with random rolls and on exotics. So I would love the ability for Xur to give us a bounty that would let us, at the very least, re-roll our exotic armor that we currently have. To me, that could be a huge boon for Xur. That would make him incredibly useful once again, because right now he's just a complete waste of space. He just comes in with exotics that everybody already has because he's carrying all the easy ones to get from the original Destiny 2. He doesn't have anything related to Forsaken. So and he never seems to bring any of the rolls that I want on his armor either. So I'm just like, dude, can you just do something for somebody, please? So hopefully Xur will return to relevance again with the March 3, but super curious to see what his bounties are. And then Brent, we've alluded to this, but the Season of the Redacted with the Penumbra update remains the most mysterious and most intriguing of these seasons to come down the pipeline here. We'll of course have a power increase, new vanity rewards, new triumphs and lore books, new rank rewards, Iron Banner for all. There will be a new exotic quest for all as well. And how about this, dude? Solstice of Heroes will return with the Penumbra update. Solstice of Heroes was a fantastic event when it rolled out back at the end of Destiny 2 Vanilla. We got moments of triumph at that time. I anticipate those returning here with Solstice of Heroes. We got a brand new armor set that set us up for the next expansion before it came out. Maybe we'll see something like that again here. But you got to be excited to see Solstice of Heroes on the list, right? Coming back in. That was a fun event.
Yes, I learned from the last Solstice of Heroes not to wait till the last minute, so I will know to get started right away. But yeah, that was a fantastic event. Solstice of Heroes was an incredible event, very well thought out, very well planned out. It was something I was really invested in, and I'm looking forward to another Solstice of Heroes.
Absolutely. On the annual pass content side of things, we have new weapons and gear, of course, new triumph and lore books, a new 6-player match-made activity. A brand new 6-player match-made activity, Brent. We have no 6-player match-made activities in the game right now outside of Iron Banner and Quick Play. So what is that going to entail? The other, of course, 6-player activity we have in the game is raids, which is of course everybody's favorite piece of content in Destiny. So what is that thing going to entail, man? Very intrigued about that. And once again, in the flavor text here, new raid. Doesn't say raid lair. It says new raid.
New raid
with the Penumbra update. So is this going to take us someplace even different than the last city and the Dreaming City that we've been in with the first 2 raids with Destiny 2 Forsaken? And then Brent, we have 2 redacted pieces on here. Interesting. If you look at where they're set up on the graph here, so they have everything set up in the same spots. So see, yeah. So it looks like one of those redacted things might be an exotic quest. So could this be for an exotic that's just either so secretive that we're not going to know about it, or maybe it's something like Gallarhorn, where it's gonna throw everybody into a tizzy because they want to get their hands on this legendary exotic from Destiny 1. That's kind of my theory on that. And then next to that, there's another redacted piece of content, and it doesn't match up with any of the items on the annual pass content at the bottom, but it's in the spot where events occur in that top portion there. So is there going to be an additional event with Penumbra that's super secretive right now that we don't know about? Brent, what's your thoughts on all this, dude? I know you're excited for Penumbra.
I am, but man, they're teasing us way too much. Like, I don't even know what this one's about, and like I'm trying to figure out what the redacted items are. They're doing a great job. I mean, they've mentioned that this one is all about the mystery and discovering stuff. They're not going to tell us anything, and this is just fits with that theme. They're not going to tell us what it is. We're going to have to go out and find it. And I mean, that's out of all these 3. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Forge and the Drifter sound awesome. Yeah. I am eyeing that one up hard. That's the one I really want, is the Penumbra update.
Dude, can you imagine an entire season of content just based around Whisper of the Worm style content? Like, how cool would that be?
That's sexy as hell, dude. That's sexy as hell.
A couple final things we're gonna touch on here that basically gives us the roadmap for the for the upcoming year here for Destiny 2 Forsaken. So obviously some exciting stuff on there. But yeah, final couple things.
One thing I want to mention too here, and Dark Shadow brought this up in the chat. It was interesting. We had this update, and we still don't have trials on there.
Still no trials.
We still don't have faction rallies on there.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting not to see both of those things are kind of like omitted off there. We don't see them there yet. Hopefully we won't have to wait too long, but it doesn't appear at this point trials or faction rallies will be coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, I was definitely a little surprised to not see them a part of this season of content. I don't think there's any question that both of those activities will return.
Oh yeah,
at some point. And it's still possible they return during Black Armory. They just haven't spilled the beans on it yet because they're not ready to roll that stuff out. Like that's something when you talk about trials, maybe less so with faction rallies, but when you talk about trials, you got to be ready to roll that thing out. So if it's not ready to go at the beginning of the season, like let's hold that back. If mid-season they're like, hey, trials is coming back, like I think people will get excited about that. So, so we'll have to wait and see. No question it's coming back. The question is now, does it happen in this season or does it happen somewhere down the line? Right. So a couple of things we want to touch on here in terms of progression, Brent, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page here. All players of Destiny 2 Forsaken may reach 650 power, no annual pass required. The soft cap will remain at 500 power. Players under 550 should expect to see prime engrams more frequently and receive higher power bumps to help them reach endgame levels. So that's cool. Powerful reward sources will remain consistent for those who own Destiny 2 Forsaken. There will be new powerful reward sources for those who own the annual pass. So another interesting wrinkle there. We're gonna have new ways to get powerful rewards, Brent. Even more things lighting up on the director for us now to try and get our hands on.
I gotta imagine it's like the weekly or daily challenges were tied to the Forge event.
Gotta be, yeah, definitely. Yeah. They also mentioned as we continue to work towards a goal of Destiny 2 feeling like a world that evolves and changes over time, we are looking at how players earn powerful rewards overall and how this could change in future seasons. We have quite a bit of time until Season of the Drifter begins. We'll be sure to give an update on what to expect in the future. Until then, happy hunting. So not so subtly hinting there, Brent, that they are investigating how we earn powerful rewards and how that might change in the future. Just quickly, any thoughts on that? Is there something you'd like to see change in terms of the way we earn powerful rewards?
In all honesty, man, I'm pretty happy with the way we earn powerful rewards. There's a lot of ways to earn them. I mean, you get the random prime engram that drops occasionally, and there's constantly daily and weekly challenges tied to multiple different events. So no, I don't have any issues, or I wasn't even thinking they needed to figure out any ways. But hey, I'll take more ways. If they want to give me more ways to earn powerful gear, I'm down for it.
I'm with you, man. Final thing we want to note here: the veterans bundle, or the veteran of the hunt bundle, that those who played Destiny 2 Forsaken prior to October 16th were promised, has been delayed slightly. It is now planned to go live on December 18th with update 2.1.3. There's a minor bug they discovered when they were about to roll this out in early December here. So they held it back a couple weeks. Now plan to go live with the update on December 18th. So look out for that. Once again, it includes a unique emblem, unique shader, a whole bunch of consumables, and 2 brand new exotic emotes that we'll be able to get our hands on. Some cool exotic emotes in this Season of the Forge update too, Brent.
Are you talking about the like the nothing is wrong? I love that one.
Nothing is wrong. The chair one where you sit on the chair.
Yeah, from where Cat sits down.
Yeah, when Cat sits down. Dude, I don't know if you saw, but I just retweeted it. The Bungie put it in the update here, but some guy had with a group of people put
the
together
one where he had the
3
s'mores.
Emotes. Yeah. The guy sits down at the table. And then the everything's fine emote where the table catches on fire after he sits down on it. The other guy pulls up the chair to the table with the chair emote. Then the other guy has the s'more emote and pulls it out and he roasts his marshmallow directly in the fire. It's perfectly set up, and it was awesome. It was really funny to watch that play out.
Yeah, it was.
But that's going to do it, Brent. So a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about, obviously, with the brand new season of content, new Vidoc, lots of stuff going on in the world of Destiny. December 4th, right around the corner. We will once again be consumed by this game. as we generally are. So we'll have a lot to do with Black Armory comes down. But this is pretty exciting stuff, right, man?
Oh yeah, I'm very excited, dude. Can't wait to jump into it on Tuesday.
Yeah. So really excited to continue our journey through Forsaken. Brent, before we wrap this up, I want to give a shout out to who we got in the chat here today, man.
Oh man, we had Dark Shadow Wolf, Jacob was in there, Insanity, JD, all you guys. We really appreciate you guys stopping by and hanging out and talking Destiny 2 with us, man.
Appreciate it, guys. So if you like what we do here on Tower Talk, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you always know when we go live. If you missed the live show here, no worries. Leave some comments down there underneath the video. We'll be happy to read them and respond to you as soon as we get a chance. But definitely come by, be a part of the show. We try to do Tower Talk Thursday nights, generally around 10:30, sometimes 11:30 when the technology doesn't work. But at some point Thursday night, we'll go live with an episode of Tower Talk. We'll talk any and everything in the world of Destiny and have a damn fine time doing it. So appreciate all you guys stopping by. Follow us on Twitter at The Short Pause. It's an easy way for you to keep up with everything that we do. And you can follow us www.shortpause.com on the old web there, if you so choose. So Brent, that's gonna do it for us, man. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
Nah, man. Let's go play some Destiny.
Sounds good. So thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We'll see you guys next week. We'll see you out there on the battlefield. Have a good evening, Guardians.
See you guys.